Captain Marcus Stone stood perfectly still behind Queen Isabella's throne, his trained eyes scanning the grand hall as the monthly court session concluded. The familiar weight of his ceremonial sword and the subtle hum of advanced security systems provided their usual comfort. 3 years of protecting Earth's first interstellar monarch had taught him to read danger in the smallest details. The Queen rose gracefully, her silver gown catching the afternoon light streaming through the massive windows. Representatives from 12 human colonies had presented their quarterly reports. Trade agreements had been signed and diplomatic protocols had been observed with mathematical precision. Another routine day in the palace. "Captain Stone," Queen Isabella said without turning, her voice carrying the authority that had unified humanity's scattered worlds. "Walk with me to the garden terrace." Marcus stepped forward, maintaining the regulation 2-pace distance as they moved through corridors lined with portraits of Earth's greatest leaders. His enhanced peripheral vision caught every shadow, every movement from the household staff who bowed as they passed. The Queen's security detail followed at their designated intervals, a choreographed dance of protection. They reached the terrace where Isabella often held private conversations with visiting dignitaries. The space overlooked the city below, where millions of humans worked and lived under her guidance. Marcus positioned himself at the standard observation point, hands clasped behind his back. "The Centauri delegation seemed pleased with the mining agreements," the Queen said, settling into her favorite chair near the marble railing. "Indeed, Your Majesty." Ambassador Chen appeared satisfied with the terms. Isabella nodded, then paused. She reached toward the small table beside her chair, her fingers moving toward the decorative water glass that always waited there. Marcus watched the motion with practiced attention, noting nothing unusual until her hand stopped mid-reach. The Queen's entire body went rigid. Marcus immediately shifted into high alert, his eyes sweeping the terrace for threats. No movement in the gardens below. No unusual sounds from the corridors behind them. The other guards maintained their positions, unaware of any change. But Isabella remained frozen, her hand suspended inches from the glass. "Your Majesty?" Marcus asked quietly. She didn't respond. Her breathing had become shallow, controlled in a way that suggested intense concentration rather than fear. Marcus moved one step closer, breaking protocol for the first time in his career. Isabella's hand trembled slightly, still hovering over the glass. The afternoon sunlight revealed something Marcus had never seen before, genuine uncertainty in the Queen's expression. "Captain," she whispered, her voice carrying a note he'd never heard. "Look at the glass." Marcus focused on the crystal water glass, scanning for anything unusual. Clear water, no visible particles, no unusual reflections. The glass appeared identical to the hundreds he'd seen her drink from over the years. Then he saw it. A tiny droplet on the rim, so small it was nearly invisible. But Marcus's enhanced training allowed him to detect the slight difference in how light refracted through it compared to plain water. His blood chilled. "Your Majesty, please step away from the table," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline now coursing through his system. Isabella finally moved, pulling her hand back as if the glass had become radioactive. She stood slowly, her movements careful and controlled. Marcus activated his comm unit with a subtle gesture, sending a coded signal to the security command center. Within seconds, his earpiece crackled with acknowledgement. "Silent containment protocol," he said in barely audible tones. "Terra secure. Analysis needed." The Queen watched him with eyes that held both trust and something else Marcus couldn't identify. Fear, perhaps, but not for herself. Something deeper. "How did you know to look so carefully?" he asked. Isabella's jaw tightened. "Because this isn't the first time." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His training kicked in immediately, mind racing through security protocols and threat assessments. If there had been other attempts, why hadn't he been informed? Why hadn't the security briefings mentioned patterns? "Your Majesty, with respect, I need to know everything." Isabella looked out over the city, her hands gripping the marble railing. 3 other occasions, Captain. Each time I felt something was wrong. Each time I ignored the feeling and drank anyway. Each time I became ill within hours. Marcus felt his professional composure wavering. The Queen had been poisoned 3 times, and somehow the security apparatus had failed to detect a pattern. Either the intelligence was being suppressed, or someone with extraordinary access was orchestrating these attempts. "Who else knows about your suspicions?" he asked. "No one until this moment." The implications crashed over Marcus like a tide. The Queen had been protecting herself through intuition alone, not trusting her own security apparatus. The realization meant their entire system had been compromised, possibly from the highest levels. Isabella turned to face him directly, her eyes holding the weight of command that had brought humanity to the stars. "Captain Stone, I'm about to ask something of you that goes far beyond your official duties." Marcus straightened, feeling the gravity of the moment settling around them like gathering storm clouds. "I need you to help me find out who wants me dead, and I need you to do it without alerting anyone else in the security division." The request violated every protocol Marcus had sworn to uphold, but looking into the Queen's eyes, he understood that following standard procedures might be exactly what her enemies expected. The game had changed completely. 2 hours later, Marcus stood in the Queen's private study, a room he'd never entered despite 3 years of service. The space felt intimate and surprisingly modest, lined with books and personal photographs rather than state portraits. Isabella sat behind a simple wooden desk that seemed oddly humble for the ruler of humanity's greatest empire. "The first incident happened 6 months ago," she began, her voice quiet but steady. "A state dinner with the Martian Trade Council. I felt dizzy during the soup course, but attributed it to stress. By midnight, I was violently ill. The palace physicians called it food poisoning." Marcus listened carefully, his mind cataloging details. "Who had access to your food that evening?" 43 people, according to security logs. Kitchen staff, servers, food tasters, wine stewards, all cleared through standard protocols. Isabella paused, her fingers drumming against the desk surface. "The second incident was 3 months later. Morning tea in my private chambers. Only 5 people had access that time. The same 5 who have access now? 3 of them." Isabella's eyes met his. "My personal secretary, Helen Morrison, head chef Claude Martinez, and senior aide Patricia Wells." Marcus felt the weight of suspicion settling in his chest. 3 people with intimate access to the Queen's daily routine. 3 people who had earned the highest levels of trust. The third incident? 5 weeks ago. Evening wine in the small dining room after a cabinet meeting. 7 people present, all senior government officials. Marcus began pacing, his mind working through possibilities. "Your Majesty, why didn't you report these suspicions to Security Command?" Isabella's expression darkened. "Because Director Harrison was present at both the dinner and the cabinet meeting." The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Director Richard Harrison had been the chief of royal security for 8 years. A man Marcus had trusted implicitly. If Harrison was involved, then the conspiracy reached the highest levels of the protection apparatus. "We need evidence," Marcus said, "which is why I stopped you today. I've been watching for patterns, waiting for another opportunity." Isabella opened a drawer and removed a small device Marcus didn't recognize. This scanner was developed by the research division 3 years ago. It can detect molecular traces of over 400 known toxins. Marcus examined the device, no larger than a pen. "You've been carrying this to every meal? For 2 months. Today was the first time it detected anything." Isabella activated a wall screen displaying molecular analysis data. Marcus studied the readout, recognizing some elements from his advanced training but needing clarification on others. "The compound is synthetic," Isabella explained, "not naturally occurring, which means it was manufactured specifically for assassination. The molecular structure suggests it's designed to mimic natural illness symptoms while causing gradual organ damage." Marcus felt cold certainty settling in his stomach. "Someone has been slowly poisoning you. For months. Perhaps longer, using doses too small for detection by standard testing." The Queen stood and moved to the window, looking out over the city lights that had begun twinkling in the early evening. Marcus watched her shoulders, noting the tension she was fighting to control. "Your Majesty, we need to involve trusted elements of the investigation division." "No." Isabella's voice was firm. "If Director Harrison is compromised, we can't know how deep the conspiracy reaches. Investigation Division reports to him directly." Marcus understood the impossible position they faced. Standard protocols required, involving multiple divisions and command structures. But those same structures might be compromised. They were operating in hostile territory without knowing who could be trusted. Then what do you propose? Isabella turned back to him, her expression resolute. We conduct our own investigation tonight, while everyone believes business is proceeding normally. Your Majesty, that's extremely dangerous. More dangerous than drinking poisoned water every day while waiting for help that might never come. Marcus had no argument against her logic. The Queen was right. They were already in maximum danger, and traditional security measures had failed completely. What do you need me to do? Isabella smiled grimly. I need you to help me break into Director Harrison's office. Marcus felt his professional world tilting off its axis. Everything he'd been trained for, every protocol he'd memorized, every oath he'd sworn was leading to this moment of choice between duty and survival. The office is equipped with level 7 security protocols, he said, which you helped design. Marcus realized she was right. His recommendations had shaped much of the current security infrastructure, which meant he understood its limitations better than anyone else. If we're caught, if we don't try, I'll be dead within a month, Isabella said simply. Marcus looked into her eyes and saw not just a queen, but a human being fighting for survival against enemies who had turned her own protection apparatus against her. The choice became clear. When do we start? Isabella checked the time display on her desk. Security shift change happens at 2300 hours. Director Harrison leaves at 22:30 every night. Palace maintenance conducts corridor cleaning from 23:15 to midnight. Marcus began calculating logistics. 15-minute window between Harrison's departure and maintenance arrival. Exactly. But we'll need to disable 3 monitoring stations and bypass 2 checkpoint protocols. Marcus felt his pulse quickening. The plan was audacious and dangerous, but technically feasible. His knowledge of the security systems combined with the Queen's administrative access might create enough opportunity. Your Majesty, if we do this, there's no going back. We'll be committed to seeing this through regardless of where it leads. Isabella nodded solemnly. Captain Stone, someone is trying to kill me slowly and carefully. They've compromised our security systems and possibly our highest officials. Traditional approaches have failed. Sometimes survival requires breaking rules. Marcus understood that this decision would define not just the rest of his career, but potentially the fate of humanity's unified government. If the Queen was right about the conspiracy, then exposing it could save not just her life, but the stability of the entire interstellar republic. I'm with you, Your Majesty. Isabella extended her hand and Marcus shook it, feeling the weight of commitment settling between them. At exactly 2300 hours, Marcus moved through the palace corridors with practiced stealth. His security clearance allowed him access to most areas, but tonight's mission required careful timing and precise execution. The Queen followed 30 seconds behind, her knowledge of administrative access codes complementing his understanding of physical security measures. They had rehearsed the route twice in Isabella's study, using palace blueprints to identify potential complications. 3 security checkpoints needed to be bypassed, 2 monitoring stations required temporary disabling, and Director Harrison's office door featured both electronic and biometric locks. Marcus reached the first checkpoint and paused, listening carefully. The corridor was empty. Maintenance crews still 20 minutes away from this section. He activated his override code and watched the checkpoint status change from active to maintenance mode. Isabella appeared beside him, moving with surprising stealth for someone who spent most of her time in formal ceremonies. Her expression was focused and determined, showing none of the fear Marcus had expected. Monitoring Station 7 is around the next corner, he whispered. They advanced carefully, Marcus using hand signals to communicate timing and positioning. The monitoring station controlled camera feeds for the entire executive wing, including Director Harrison's office. Disabling it would create a 12-minute window before automatic systems triggered security alerts. Isabella produced a small electronic device from her jacket pocket. Administrative override for maintenance purposes, she explained. It should mask our activity as routine system checks. Marcus watched her connect the device to the monitoring station's interface port. The screens flickered once, then displayed normal operational status while actually showing recorded footage from the previous evening. Impressive, Marcus murmured. Research division develops more than just poison scanners, Isabella replied with a slight smile. They moved toward Harrison's office, encountering no additional personnel. The palace's nighttime security focused primarily on external threats, assuming internal systems and personnel could be trusted. Tonight, that assumption was working in their favor. Director Harrison's office occupied a corner position in the executive wing, featuring reinforced walls and the most advanced security protocols in the building. Marcus studied the door's control panel, recognizing his own security recommendations implemented in the electronic systems. Biometric scanner requires both handprint and retinal identification, he told Isabella. Harrison's prints are on file in the administrative database, she said, producing another device. This scanner can project synthetic biometric data based on stored records. Marcus watched in amazement as Isabella activated what appeared to be highly classified intelligence equipment. Your Majesty, where did you acquire these devices? I've been preparing for this possibility longer than you realize, Captain. The synthetic biometric projector interfaced with the door's scanning system, feeding it Harrison's recorded handprint data. The first lock disengaged with a soft click. Retinal scanner is next, Marcus said. Isabella adjusted the device, and a moment later the second lock released. The door to Director Harrison's office slid open silently. They entered the dark office, Marcus closing the door behind them while Isabella activated a small light source. Harrison's workspace looked exactly as Marcus expected. Neat, organized, dominated by multiple computer terminals and communication equipment. What are we looking for specifically? Marcus asked. Communication records, financial transactions, meeting schedules, anything that might reveal external contacts or irregular patterns. Isabella moved to Harrison's primary computer terminal while Marcus examined the physical files stored in secure cabinets. The office felt strangely intimidating, as if they were violating not just security protocols but some fundamental trust. Marcus, Isabella called softly. Look at this. She had accessed Harrison's personal communication logs, displaying a list of encrypted messages sent over the past 6 months. The timing aligned perfectly with the poisoning incidents. Marcus studied the data, noting that each encrypted transmission had occurred within 12 hours of one of Isabella's mysterious illnesses. Can you decrypt these? He asked. Not here, but I can copy them for analysis. Isabella connected a storage device to the terminal and began downloading files. Marcus continued searching the physical files, looking for anything that seemed unusual. Most documents dealt with routine security matters, personnel assignments, and budget allocations. Then he found something that made his blood freeze. A folder labeled Succession Protocols contained detailed contingency plans for government continuation in the event of the Queen's death or incapacitation. The documents were recent, updated just 2 weeks earlier. Your Majesty, he said quietly, Harrison has been planning for your death. Isabella looked up from the computer terminal, her face pale in the dim light. Show me. Marcus handed her the folder, watching her expression change as she read through the succession documents. The plans were thorough and professional, outlining exactly how power would transfer and who would assume control in various scenarios. This is more than just standard contingency planning, she said. These documents assume my death is imminent. Marcus felt the pieces of the conspiracy falling into place. Harrison isn't just aware of the assassination attempts, he's coordinating them. Isabella's hands trembled slightly as she continued reading. According to these documents, temporary executive authority would transfer to Deputy Director Morton, with full authorization transferring to Parliament within 90 days. Morton has been Harrison's closest associate for 5 years, Marcus said. If this conspiracy involves both of them, then our entire security apparatus has been compromised from the top. Isabella finished downloading the communication files and moved to Harrison's secondary terminal. I need to access his financial records. Marcus watched the office doorway while she worked, aware that their 12-minute window was rapidly shrinking. Discovery now would mean not just career destruction, but possibly their lives. Marcus, look at this. Isabella's voice carried a note of anger he'd never heard before. The financial records showed regular deposits from an offshore account, payments that coincided exactly with each poisoning incident. Harrison had been receiving substantial compensation for his participation in the assassination conspiracy. How much? Marcus asked. 2 million credits per month for the past 6 months. Marcus whistled softly. Someone is paying serious money to see you dead. Isabella copied the financial records, then returned to the first terminal to double-check the encrypted communications. We have evidence of the conspiracy, but we still don't know who's behind it. The soft chime indicated their time window was nearly exhausted. Marcus moved toward the door, preparing for their exit, when Isabella made a discovery that changed everything. "Marcus, come here immediately." Her voice carried urgent alarm. Marcus crossed to the computer terminal and saw what had captured her attention. A message scheduled for automatic transmission in 3 days, encrypted but with a subject line that was clearly visible. "Final phase implementation. He's planning to escalate," Isabella whispered. Marcus felt cold certainty settling in his chest. They had stumbled onto more than just evidence of past attempts. They had discovered plans for something much worse. Isabella quickly copied the scheduled message, then began shutting down the computer systems. "We need to leave now." They exited Harrison's office, relocking the security systems and reactivating the monitoring stations. The return journey proceeded without incident, but Marcus's mind was racing with implications of what they'd discovered. Back in Isabella's study, they spread the stolen files across her desk and began analyzing the evidence. The picture that emerged was both clearer and more frightening than either had imagined. "The conspiracy involves at least 4 high-ranking officials," Isabella said, studying the communication logs. "Harrison, Morton, someone identified only as Phoenix, and an external coordinator referred to as Architect." Marcus examined the financial records. The payments are coming from a shell corporation registered in the outer colonies. High-level money laundering designed to hide the source. And the final phase message suggests they're planning something for this week. Isabella activated her secure personal communicator, a device that bypassed all palace systems and connected directly to emergency protocols established by the founding governmental charter. "Your Majesty, who are you contacting?" "The only person I know with certainty isn't involved in this conspiracy." Isabella completed the connection and waited. A familiar voice answered after several moments. "This is General Patricia Walsh, Outer Colony Defense Command. Patricia, this is Isabella. I need your immediate assistance with a Code 7 security breach." Marcus felt relief flooding through him. General Walsh had been instrumental in establishing the unified government and had maintained her command position in the outer colonies, specifically to remain independent of palace politics. "Isabella, what's your situation? Internal conspiracy involving Director Harrison and others unknown. Assassination attempts have been ongoing for months. I need trusted personnel and secure facilities immediately." "Understood." "I can have a security team at your location within 4 hours." "Negative. Unknown how deep the conspiracy reaches. I need extraction protocols for myself and 1 trusted agent." Marcus watched Isabella's face as she made the decision to abandon the palace completely. The weight of choosing exile over assassination attempts showed in her expression. "Patricia, someone is paying millions of credits to kill me, and they've compromised our highest security officials. I need your protection while we determine the full scope of this conspiracy." "Isabella, are you absolutely certain about Harrison?" "I have communication records and financial evidence. The conspiracy is real, and they're planning something called Final Phase Implementation within days." A long pause followed before General Walsh responded. "Isabella, I'm going to tell you something that might explain what you've discovered. 3 weeks ago, I received intelligence reports suggesting unusual financial activity connected to palace security systems. I've been conducting a quiet investigation." Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. "General Walsh, this is Captain Marcus Stone, the Queen's security detail. What have you discovered?" "Captain Stone, I've been monitoring communications between certain palace officials and external agents. What I've found suggests this conspiracy has support from corporate interests in the Centauri system." Isabella and Marcus exchanged glances. The Centauri mining agreements they had signed earlier that day suddenly took on sinister significance. "Patricia, are you suggesting the assassination attempts are connected to colonial politics?" "I'm suggesting that certain interests would benefit substantially from stabilizing Earth's government. Your death would create the kind of chaos that makes hostile takeovers possible." Marcus felt the full scope of the conspiracy becoming clear. This wasn't just about removing Isabella from power. It was about destroying human unity and allowing corporate interests to seize control of humanity's interstellar civilization. General Walsh, what are your recommendations? Immediate extraction to secure facilities in the outer colonies. Full investigation using personnel with no palace connections. And most importantly, we need to prevent whatever they're planning for the next few days. Isabella looked at Marcus, her expression resolute. Captain, are you prepared to leave everything behind to help me stop this conspiracy? Marcus thought about his career, his life in the palace, every familiar aspect of his existence. Then he thought about what it would mean for humanity if the conspiracy succeeded. Your Majesty, my oath was to protect you and the government you represent. That oath doesn't change based on location. Isabella smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from her in months. Patricia, prepare extraction protocols for 2 personnel. We're coming to you. Understood. Transport will arrive at your location in 3 hours. Be ready for immediate departure. Isabella disconnected the communication and turned to Marcus. We have 3 hours to gather essential materials and prepare for permanent exile from the palace. Marcus nodded, understanding that they were crossing a point of no return. But looking at the evidence spread across Isabella's desk, he knew they were making the only choice that might save both her life and humanity's future. Your Majesty, what do you need me to do? Isabella's expression became businesslike and determined. We're going to expose this conspiracy and stop whatever Harrison has planned. But first, we need to survive the next few days. 3 hours later, Marcus stood on the palace's emergency landing platform, a small bag containing his essential belongings at his feet. Isabella waited beside him, her face calm but eyes alert for any sign of discovery. A military transport appeared in the night sky, approaching with lights dimmed and engines running quietly. Marcus recognized the outer colony markings but noted the ship was operating under stealth protocols. No turning back after this, Isabella said quietly. There was never any turning back after we discovered the truth, Marcus replied. The transport landed with barely a whisper, and 2 figures in military gear emerged immediately. Marcus recognized the professional movements of elite Special Forces personnel. Your Majesty, I'm Colonel Janet Morrison, General Walsh's personal security chief, the first figure said. We need to depart immediately. Intelligence suggests your security has been compromised. Isabella nodded and moved toward the transport. Colonel Morrison, what's the current situation? General Walsh has identified at least 6 individuals connected to the conspiracy, including 3 Parliament members. The scope is larger than initially believed. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. If Parliament members were involved, then the conspiracy threatened the very foundations of human government. They boarded the transport quickly, taking seats designed for rapid military deployment. Colonel Morrison activated secure communication systems as the ship lifted off into the night sky. General Walsh, we have both packages secure and en route. Understood, Colonel. Estimated arrival at Outpost 7 is 4 hours. Be advised, we've intercepted communications suggesting the palace will realize their absence within 6 hours. Marcus looked at Isabella, recognizing the implications. They'll know we discovered something, which means they'll accelerate whatever they were planning, Isabella replied. Colonel Morrison adjusted communication settings and handed them secure headsets. General Walsh needs to brief you on what we've discovered since your last communication. Isabella, Marcus, what I'm about to tell you will fundamentally change your understanding of this conspiracy. General Walsh's voice came through clearly. The assassination attempts were never just about removing you from power. They were preparation for a complete takeover of human government. Marcus felt cold dread settling in his chest. General, please explain. The financial backing comes from Centauri Corporate Consortium, a group of mining and manufacturing interests that have been planning to establish independent governance in the outer colonies. Your death would create the legal justification they need to declare independence and potentially claim Earth's colonial territories. Isabella's face had gone pale. They're planning to break up human civilization. Exactly. The assassination attempts were designed to look natural, creating instability without obviously hostile action. But their timeline has been accelerated. Why accelerated? Marcus asked. Because tomorrow morning you're scheduled to sign the Outer Colony Security Pact, an agreement that would make their independence movement illegal under interstellar law. They can't let that happen. Marcus understood with sudden clarity, the final phase Harrison mentioned. They're not planning another subtle poisoning. No, General Walsh confirmed. According to intercepted communications, they're planning to eliminate you during the signing ceremony, making it appear as if colonial interests were responsible. The resulting chaos would justify Centauri Corporate Consortium declaring emergency governance. Isabella closed her eyes, the full scope of betrayal becoming clear. Everyone I trusted has been working to destroy everything we've built. The transport flew through the night toward uncertain refuge, carrying the last hope for human unity into exile among the stars. Marcus watched Earth grow smaller through the portal, wondering if they would ever see it again. Colonel Morrison received another communication and turned to them with grim expression. General Walsh, we have a problem. Palace security has discovered your absence. They're mobilizing pursuit units. How long until they reach us? Isabella asked. Unknown, but we're still 2 hours from Outpost 7. Marcus felt the familiar weight of threat assessment flooding his mind. Their escape was no longer guaranteed, and enemies who had been planning this conspiracy for months would not hesitate to eliminate them completely. Isabella looked at him with steady determination. Captain Stone, are you ready for the fight of your life? Marcus checked his weapon and nodded grimly. Your Majesty, I've been ready since the moment you asked me to help you break into Harrison's office. The transport raced through space towards Sanctuary, carrying the future of human civilization in its hold while enemies mobilized behind them. The conspiracy that had begun with subtle poison had evolved into open warfare for the fate of humanity itself. Outside the portals, stars wheeled silently in the darkness, witnesses to the most crucial chase in human history.